Hi, friends. So I was just going to share with you something that I saw today. It's about 9/11. I usually don't ever talk about 9/11, not because I don't think there was a lot of problems with the official story about that. There obviously were, and there was more and more as years have gone by. It's been very clear that it's very problematic and that it was definitely a jumping board for the constant perpetual wars that have happened since then. And you can find more of that information by listening to Media Roots radio podcasts, because Abby Martin and Robbie Martin have done some very good discussions about that. And but I just wanted to share with you something that John Gold shared on Twitter about the 9/11, the relationship between the Saudi officials and 9/11. And the ongoing lawsuit that is happening by the 9/11 families' victims. And I think that you might find it interesting. So I'm not going to comment on this because I don't really know enough. But I thought I might just share this article by the Florida Bulldog, which talks about this particular revelation. Okay, so without further ado. So here's an interesting article by the Florida Bulldog.org, and it's called 11 Saudi officials, including one at Kingdom's U.S. Embassy, identified as 9/11 accomplices. Now, if you want to find out more about the whole 9/11 backstory and a lot of incongruencies with that event, just go to Media Roots and look for. There's some 9/11 sort of discussions there about that. So I'm not going to go into that, but I just want to share some of this for people who may not be aware. This is by Dan Christensen. So lawyers for the 9/11 family members and survivors have identified 11 Saudi government officials who they say assisted the al-Qaeda hijackers who attacked the United States 18 years ago, killing nearly 3,000 people. Quote, Saudi Arabian government officials were the accomplices without whom there never could have been a 9/11 attack, end quote. New York Attorney James Kreindler said last week during a talk at Dartmouth College. Among the 11 is the so-called third man, who was discussed in a highly censored October 12, 2012 FBI summary report as having tasked a pair of Saudis living in San Diego with aiding two future hijackers, Nawaf al-Hazimi and Khalid al-Mindar, when they arrived in the U.S. in January 2000. The 4-page report was obtained by Florida Bulldog from the FBI 3 years ago during ongoing Freedom of Information litigation. According to Kreindler, the third man was, quote, a high-ranking official in the Saudi embassy in Washington who, end quote, who sent an instruction to a consular official in Los Angeles, Fahad al-Tumeri, ordering him to provide the help that Hazmi and Mindar needed, end quote. Kreindler would not disclose the third man's name or the names of the other 10 alleged Saudi 9/11 accomplices, saying he was forbidden to do so by a quote, disgusting protective order imposed upon us by the Justice Department with the blessing of the court, end quote. President Trump ordered the declassification of the third man's name at a September meeting with 9/11 survivors at the White House on the 18th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. The Justice Department promptly issued a statement saying the name was being declassified, quote, in the public interest, end quote, but would be given only to lawyers who represent the thousands of 9/11 victims now suing Saudi Arabia in federal court in New York. The kingdom, which is vigorously defending itself, has long maintained it had no involvement in 9/11. Miami U.S. District Judge Cecilia Altonega recently denied a request by Florida Bulldog to release the name publicly. The day after the Trump meeting, U.S. Attorney General William Barr personally invoked the, quote, state secrets privilege, end quote, in court to prevent the release of other censored information contained in the FBI report. Quote, the remaining information that has been redacted from the 2012 summary report remains classified and or privileged and protected from disclosure, end quote, government lawyers said in a court filing. The FBI report addressed, quote, updates and initiatives as of 5th of October 2012, end quote. Among its topics were then ongoing efforts to charge a suspect whose name is blanked out with, quote, providing material support to the 9/11 hijackers, end quote, a June 2012 trip to London by agents and prosecutors, quote, to exploit evidence seized in 2001 in Scotland, New Scotland Yard searches of, in brackets, suspected Saudi intelligence agents, end brackets, Omar al-Bayoumy's residences and offices, end quote. Information about Mondar Abdallah, a Yemeni who Bayoumi tasked to assist hijackers Hazmi and Mindar, and later, quote-unquote, bragged he's done so to 2 fellow inmates at a federal immigration facility. The outcome of those inquiries is not known, but no arrests were ever made. The 2012 reports released to Florida Bulldog was a stunning development in the search for answers. Former Florida Senator Bob Graham, by the way, you can see a few interviews with Senator Bob Graham on the Real News Network about this issue, about the 28 pages, the 28 redacted pages of that report, and it's very interesting. So Senator Bob Graham, co-chair of Congress Joint Inquiry into 9/11, said the information it disclosed was, quote, contrary to almost everything the FBI has produced so far, end quote. Sean Carter, a Philadelphia attorney, who represents numerous commercial victims in the New York case, called it a, quote, powerful and important disclosure. Quote, we've been repeatedly told by US officials that all questions of Saudi involvement were resolved by the 9/11 Commission, and now you have confirmation that there was an active investigation happening years after the 9/11 Commission shut its doors, end quote, in August 2004, Carter said. So there's some related posts to this, but I would encourage people, if you're interested in this issue, to go to Media Roots Radio with Abby Martin and Robbie Martin, and they interviewed 2 people, and honestly I can't remember their names, sorry, but they wrote a book called The Dogs Didn't Bark or something like that, and it just shows the incredible failings that happened up to that event, and how, you know, you could hardly imagine there could be so many miscommunications and non-communications and so forth. But anyway, so check out Media Roots Radio for that interview that Robbie and Abby Martin did. You could probably just search for 9/11 in the meta tag and find it there. So anyway, I just thought this was an interesting article, and I thought that I would share it. That originally was shared on Twitter by John Gold. Okay, so thanks so much for listening. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.